Hey guys, it's Kat here from Changing Tide, doing my first live topic talk, which is really exciting. So basically, I put together the topic talks because I just wanted to have a space where I could have a little bit of a collaborative, talk with people. So I wanted to be able to look at topics that people are actually interested in hearing about, rather than me just making up stuff and popping it up there. And just, I guess, giving people the opportunity to ask some questions because, that's really important. Often I talk about things and you might have something that you think, oh, well, actually, I really want to know a little bit more about that. So I guess these topic talks are spaces for that to happen, for people to ask questions and, bring topics up that, you might have been struggling and you want to have a bit of a conversation about. So tonight we're going to be talking a little bit around a topic that was requested, and it's around self-care. It's around that feeling of burning out and, how do we get to that point, and some of the ways that we can manage it. So I do have a few notes as well. So if I keep looking back and forward, it is because I'm checking my notes because there is stuff that I don't want to miss out on. If you have any questions, just pop them down. I am keeping a little check on any questions that are coming up as well. So bear with me. I'm gonna, we're keeping this cash. All right. So I guess when we're thinking about, burnout and how we're caring for ourselves, the first thing to recognize is, what does it look like when we're actually getting to that point? So for everyone, it can be quite different. Some people are really aware and some people can really tell when that's starting to happen and they're getting to that space. And then sometimes it almost feels like, things are traveling along really well. And then all of a sudden you've lost your crap and you're already at the end of the rope. So some of the common things that people might see is getting really easily frustrated. So I guess we're thinking about, situations where normally we'd kind of be able to manage them. They might be a little bit frustrating, but we just move on with our lives and they're okay. When we're starting to get to that burnout point and the end of the rope, they're the times when small things are just making us flip out. So it could feel like a build up where you've kind of had a day where things are starting to happen and you're like, all right, I'm managing this. And then at the end of the day, something small happens and it just breaks you. So that level of frustration around things that normally you would be able to manage fine. Sometimes that comes out as being snappy. So personally for me, I definitely know that I'm reaching burnout when I am snapping at people. Everything that somebody says, I'm just frustrated at, things that I could normally kind of just let slide, they make me incredibly, incredibly angry. Becoming really emotional about things. So, things that you would normally be able to kind of cope with, they make you want to cry, they make you want to scream, they make you furious. For any of the parents that are watching, this can often happen with the kids. So, starting to not be able to deal with the kids anymore and screaming at the kids, yelling at the kids, really losing your patience with the kids quite quickly. And as a parent myself, I completely understand that. But it can show you that you're really getting to the end of your road. Another thing that can show up when you're starting to get to burnout is a level of control. So often we get to this burnt out feeling, and one of the reasons is because we feel like everything's out of control. So what our brain does is says, okay, well, I'm feeling really stressed out because it feels like everything's out of control. So I am going to take super control of everything I can. So this is the micromanaging. So this is where, you start to go, oh my God, my house is not clean enough. I am going to clean it from top to bottom every single day. If I see a bit of dust, that freaks me out. This could also be behavior that comes across with controlling what you're eating. So it can go either way. So this may be, well, I'm not eating at the moment, or this can come into binging as well, because it's something that you have control of. So you kind of really latch onto that control. It can be controlling people around you as well. So starting to, really, hassle people and really be like, no, you have to do it this way. You have to do it that way. It needs to be this certain way for me to feel okay. Another thing that generally will come up as well is that emotional exhaustion. So sometimes this gets described as no matter how much you sleep, you still feel exhausted. So you might be having full nights of sleep and having a deep sleep, but you wake up in the morning and you feel absolutely knackered at the start of your day. And we also get physical symptoms. So you think about things like headaches, things like stomach issues. These are physical symptoms that can come up when we're getting to that burnout point and we're getting to that level of exhaustion. So I guess thinking about some reasons of why we get to that point, one of the biggest reasons is the overworking. So it's the juggle. We're juggling work. We're juggling parenting, we're juggling schooling, we're juggling, COVID. There's so many plates that we are trying to keep spinning at one time that it just becomes completely overwhelming. Often we are caring for other people and we're taking on, other people's stuff as well. So, again, for those of us that are parents, very much so we're managing not only our own emotions and what's happening for us, but we're trying to manage it for little ones as well. We're trying to, be the best parents we can to stop them growing up and thinking, why did my parents ruin me? And so that's a huge plate to juggle as well. And I guess when I think about it and in a visual sense, I always kind of imagine when you see, kind of the circus jugglers where they've got the sticks and all the plates spinning on top of them. And that's what it's like. But the difference is we're absolutely terrified of the idea of one of those plates falling, because the consequences of that in our heads is absolutely detrimental. Another reason why we get to that point of overwhelm is not having any support. So it's, not just the physical support. So it might be, not having someone who can physically help us out with, things like looking after the kids, things like extra work. But it's the emotional support as well. So, it can often be not having somebody to talk to, not having somebody who really validates what you're feeling. So, we can sometimes have people to talk to, but if we don't get validated, and you don't feel heard, it doesn't really feel like it's support at all. So it kind of, it renders the conversation a little bit mute, to be honest, because what we're looking for in that conversation is we're looking for that support. We're looking for that person to validate, you're right. This is exactly what exactly what I'm feeling, and you're understanding. So if we're not getting that, you do get to the point of burnout. And another thing as well, that we generally are all a little bit guilty of, I know I absolutely am, is taking on too much responsibility. So for people that are a little bit like me, and kind of do the people pleasing, this is really difficult. Generally, there's been something that's happened as we've grown up that's kind of instilled that belief of, if I am not doing above and beyond and putting 1,000,000% in, and people can't see that I'm doing all these amazing things, then I am not going to get the recognition that I want. So what we do is we start to take on, we become the yes people. So every time somebody asks us to do something, can you do this? Can you take this on? We go, yep. And we just keep taking and taking and taking. And initially you get that great feeling, because initially when you're taking on these responsibilities, people are like, wow, thanks so much, you're amazing. So you get all of that good feeling, but that doesn't last, because once people have said, great, thanks, you're amazing, they walk away and you're still left with the responsibility that you've taken on. So those are, some of the ways that we get to that point. If anybody that's watching at the moment has other things that you think kind of contribute to that, definitely pop them in as a chat as well, because I'd be really interested to hear a little bit about that. And also if there's other ways that you see things coming out, so that you're starting to get to that point of burnout, definitely whack them in there as well, because it's always cool to see, I guess, what it looks like for other people as well. So when we're thinking about this point, we're at burnout, we're like, I'm doing everything for everybody else, I have no time for myself, I am just like ready to flip. Let's have a look and think of what we can do. So some of these are a little bit easier said than done. And often I say these and, people are like, yeah, that's really easy to say. It's not so easy to do. But I think that at some level, we really need to get to a point where we're taking responsibility for ourselves. So, there's a lot of things that have happened that have got us to this point. But, as adults, it's time now to be like, what's working for me and what's not. Yep, Amanda's just popped. I get passive aggressive. Absolutely. Definitely. I do the exact same thing. So when we're thinking about, starting to take that responsibility and being like, what can I do to, to take care of myself, and what can I do to make these changes? And so starting with the bare basics. So what we need to be doing is we need to be eating, sleeping, and drinking. So if we're not giving our body the bare basics to function, then it is absolutely impossible for it to be able to be doing anything, I guess, like anything good that's going to be, taking care of us. When you get to burnout, when you are at the end of your rope, these are the three things that start to go. So we don't sleep well. We either undereat, or we start to overeat, or we could, really start to crave junk food. So we start to, basically take nutrition away from our body. So our body's still trying to function, and we're actually physically not giving it what it needs. And then with water as well. So, one of the things that people might do is they start to drink more alcohol. So you're drinking alcohol, which is then dehydrating you even further. So as a really basic thing to think about is, have a look at what your habits are around drinking, around eating, and around sleeping. Another thing that we can start to look at are, what do our boundaries look like? So when we think about boundaries, kind of think about a fence. So if you were to imagine that you had a bit of a fence around you. So what we want to do is start to think about what that fence looks like in our mind. So what are we letting jump over that fence into our head? What sort of boundaries do we have around how much we're willing to do for people? How much of our time we're willing to give to people? Can we say no when somebody asks for something and we actually do not have it in us to do it? Boundaries are not easy to put up. They are even harder after the fact as well. So if you're somebody who has been saying yes for a long time, being able to put those boundaries up after the fact can be really difficult. But it's a skill that can be learnt. And it's something that's really important, because if you were thinking, if you were to think about it in the way that you have your property and you have a fence around your property, would you just let anybody run over, jump in the fence and steal some stuff out of your front yard? Because essentially, when we don't have any mental boundaries, that's what we're letting people do. Another way that I sometimes frame it to people who are very visual is to imagine yourself as a whole, and every time you give to somebody, imagine that a part of your body is actually being taken. So if you go through the day and you have given and yes to everyone around you, how much of your body do you actually have left? And is that a functional amount of body to have? So boundaries is a huge one. Another one is asking for help. So being able to recognize I'm not coping and asking for help. It's really difficult because we live in a society that has, generally told us asking for help makes you weak. Asking for help means that you're not capable. But it's not. It means that you have the level of self-awareness to recognize that you are not able to cope with whatever is happening at that time and you need some help. Kind of on the tail end of that is delegating. So I actually put in my little notes here, delegating and being okay with it done differently. And the reason that I put that is because I know personally that when I am at that burnout and at that level of overwhelm and feeling like, I'm frustrated already, if I delegate a task to somebody and it doesn't look like how I want it to, it just makes me crazy. So it pushes it like right to the end of the rope. So, we need to be really conscious that when we're delegating a task to somebody, we're reaching out, we're saying, I cannot do this, so I need you to help, that we're okay with what that result is going to be. This is a big one, I think, for parents as well, because often we're like, oh, I'm not doing everything in this house anymore. That's it. My kids are going to do chores. And then we give them chores to do, and then they finish the chore and we look at it and we're like, oh my God, that is not how you do it. That does not look neat enough. That is not, not done well enough. We really need to be conscious in ourselves of when we're asking somebody to do something for us, we have to kind of be at that point where, the way that they do it is going to be okay in comparison to us trying to do it ourselves. And I think this comes in a little bit to marriages as well, is asking your other half to do a chore, and then being really frustrated with how it looks. And it's generally not anything to do with them. It's really about how we're feeling. It's about ourselves. And it kind of ties into that control stuff as well. Another key point that I like to say and that I kind of really like to drum into people is you need to make you time, and it needs to be non-negotiable. So we have this, I'm going to make myself some me time. I'm going to, make sure that, once a day or once a week or however long it is, I really make sure that this is a time for me. This is going to be a time that, I get to look after my self-care. And then we have a bad habit of, as soon as somebody says, hey, can I have a bit of that time? We're like, yeah, okay, no worries. Pushing my stuff aside to do other things. So when we are making our me time, it is non-negotiable. Unless there is a huge emergency or a crisis that nobody else can deal with, that is your time. And it is okay to tell people. So I will say, if I am having my time in the morning, and I have gone, that's it, I'm going to lay in bed for this hour, I'm going to scroll Facebook, I'm going to do all of that stuff that is completely, brain numbing and I don't have to think about, that's going to be my time for the day. And if my kids come in and they want something from me, I will say, I am having my time at the moment. I can help you out in an hour's time, I can help you out in half an hour's time, but I am having my time. Often as parents, we kind of feel a bit guilty about that. Like I have a lot of parents say to me, oh my God, I can't do that. They're my kids, they need me. I guess one of the ways you can look at it is you're teaching them by example. So when you are saying to your child, this is my time, I need this, it gives your child the opportunity to learn, oh, okay, so it's okay to have that. This is a thing that I'm going to be able to, put into my life as well. So kids are watching what we do. You don't need to feel guilty for having your own time. And another example I use is the empty cup. So how do we pour from an empty cup? We can't. So if you're not doing things to refill your cup, then there's absolutely no way that you can give to anybody else. So that is non-negotiable me time. And then lastly, my last tip is having a daily mindful practice, in place. So this is, this can be a 2-minute meditation. This can be, doing a little bit of gratitude in the morning. But the purpose around it, number one, the purpose around it is to calm your system. So you're not always functioning on survival mode. But also what you're doing is you are telling yourself, I am worthy of having some time. So, I am allowed to have this time. I am allowed to have this space. And, I am important enough to be able to take this space and give it to myself every day. And when you start to do that, it really changes the way, I guess, that you look at what your role is in comparison to other people around you. You don't always have to be the person that takes on everybody else's responsibilities and that's, yes, this, yes, that, and takes it all on. It's okay to put your space there and be like, well, no, actually, I'm having this space to myself. This is important to me. So I guess they were my tips around what we can do. So if anybody has any questions that they want to chuck out, absolutely pop it in there, and I can have a look at those. And also, if anybody has any specific topics that they think would be cool to hear about or want to have a chat about, I would definitely be interested in hearing about, I guess, what everyone wants to hear about. I had a really interesting conversation with someone today and they said, what is it about what you do that you actually like? And I said, well, I love my face-to-face stuff. I love being able to actually see people, because I love to see, well, I described it like I love to see it when the light switches. So often, you're talking to people, you go back and forth, and then you kind of say something and you just see this little switch where they're like, oh my God, that's me. Or, oh, how have I not seen this? So for me, that part is amazing where I just go, it just switched on. And so it's really hard doing it like this because I don't get to see people. So I don't get to see if anyone's light is switching on. I don't even get to see if there's any electricity behind there. So it's really amazing for me as well to be able to kind of, hear if anything has switched your light on. And if there's anything that we've talked about that you have kind of had that moment of, oh yeah, that's totally me. She just described my life. So if that happens, absolutely, I'd love to know that as well. So that's all from me tonight. It's a quick one. There's no questions coming through. So obviously if you had any questions after this that you didn't want to pop up on the chat, you can always just jump on my Facebook page, send me a message. And yeah, we can definitely touch base that way as well. Otherwise, please think about, some of the tips I've put through, and even if you can just choose one for now, try to put that in place. Just, take the first step, because the first step is always the hardest. But once you do that and you realize how good it feels to be able to have that in place, it's a little bit easier to take the rest of the steps behind there as well. So everybody have an amazing night. Have an amazing rest of the week. Please stay safe, look after each other. And I will be back here at 7 next Wednesday with a new topic to chat about. Thanks, guys.